r/confession my helicopter mom snapped at my boss, never been prouder. Hashtag chunk 1. The email pinged in my inbox at 8:47 a.m., and I felt my stomach drop before I even finished reading it. Conference room. Now. Hartley. 3 words. A period instead of an exclamation mark, which somehow made it worse. That's how Marcus Hartley communicated, terse, demanding, designed to maximize anxiety. I'd been working at Pearson Marketing for 4 months, and I'd received approximately 847 of these emails. Maybe more. I'd stopped counting after month 2. I grabbed my notebook. Always grab your notebook, I'd learned, because sometimes Hartley would yell at you for not taking notes while simultaneously yelling at you for looking too focused on writing and not engaged enough, and made my way down the hallway. My coworker James caught my eye from across the cubicle farm and gave me a sympathetic grimace. He'd been through a Hartley conference room session that morning already. The thing about Marcus Hartley was that he seemed to have specifically designed his management style to target the youngest, most vulnerable members of the team. We were all recent grads or near it, entry-level positions, first real jobs, still carrying the post-college belief that maybe we were the problem. Maybe we just needed to work harder. Maybe if I stayed later, responded to emails faster, anticipated his needs better, figured out the exact specific way he wanted the quarterly reports formatted, maybe then he'd stop looking at me like I'd personally murdered his childhood dog. I'd tried everything. I'd bought a new planner. I'd started coming in 15 minutes early. I'd even downloaded some productivity app that my mom had texted me about, which, yes, she was always texting me about things, hence the helicopter parent status. Nothing worked. The goalposts just moved. The criticism just got meaner. My mom had been texting me more lately, actually. Not just the productivity stuff. She'd started asking more pointed questions about work. How did it go today? Is your boss treating you well? Do you feel respected? The last one made me laugh a little because it was so mom, so earnestly concerned about my feelings in that way that made you simultaneously want to hug her and also maybe move to another country. I pushed open the glass door to the conference room. Hartley was already there, sitting at the head of the table with his laptop open. He didn't look up. Close the door, he said. I did. The Henderson campaign, he continued, still not looking at me. The one I assigned you on Monday. It's garbage. Complete garbage. Did you actually put any effort into this, or did you just slap something together? I started, but he held up a hand. I don't want to hear excuses. I want to know why you thought this was acceptable. I want to know what you were thinking when you looked at this mediocre drivel and decided it was ready for presentation. Did you not read the brief? Can you not read? Should I be providing you with picture books instead of written assignments? My throat felt tight. This was the part one hated most, not the criticism, which was sometimes fair, sometimes not, but the public nature of it. Because conference rooms at Pearson Marketing weren't actually that private. The walls were glass. Everyone could see. And the way Hartley's voice carried, everyone could definitely hear. I spent 8 hours on that campaign, I said quietly. I incorporated all your initial feedback, and 8 hours? That's the problem right there. Incompetence takes longer, doesn't it? I could do this in 2. A competent designer could do it in 3. You took 8 and produced this. He finally looked at me, his face twisted into an expression of such disdain that it made my eyes water a little. You know what? I'm going to give you another assignment. Same campaign, fresh approach, and you have until end of day tomorrow. And if this one is anywhere near as bad as this pathetic excuse for work, we're going to have a very different conversation about your future here. End of day tomorrow. That was impossible. That was deliberately impossible. That was the pattern, assign something unreasonable, wait for it to fail, use the failure as proof that I was incompetent. I'd seen him do it to 3 other junior employees since I'd started. 2 of them had already quit. Okay, I heard myself say. I'll. And close your mouth when you're thinking, he added. You look stupid doing that. I closed my mouth. My hands were shaking as I picked up my notebook, which I'd barely written in because he hadn't let me speak, and stood up. One more thing, he called as I reached for the door handle. Tell reception to call your mother if she comes by. Tell them to keep her in the lobby. I don't want family members bothering people during work hours. It's unprofessional. My face burned. He knew about my mom texting me. He'd seen me reading a message once and had made some comment about helicopter parents who can't cut the umbilical cord. I'd laughed it off, like I always did. She won't, I started. I don't want to hear it. Get out. And close the door quietly. That loud click bothers me. I left carefully, gently, easing the door shut like it was a sleeping baby. My vision was a little blurry. I wasn't going to cry at work. I wasn't going to be that person. I made it back to my desk and pulled up the Henderson campaign file, staring at the work I'd done, trying to see it through Hartley's eyes. What was wrong with it? Was everything wrong with it? Or was the problem just that it was me? My phone buzzed. A text from my mom. Hi sweetheart. Just wanted to check in. How's your day going? Want to do a call during lunch? Love you. I stared at that message for a long moment, feeling the weight of everything, the impossible deadline, the 4 months of constant criticism, the absolute certainty that I wasn't good enough. I didn't respond. I just opened a fresh document and started over on the Henderson campaign, knowing I'd be here until midnight, knowing it wouldn't matter, knowing that Hartley had already decided I'd failed. What I didn't know was that my mom had other ideas. Hashtag chunk 2. I made it to 11:47 p.m. before my vision started doing that thing where the words on the screen looked like they were swimming. The office was dead quiet, just me, the hum of the air conditioning that kicked in at night, and the occasional security guard doing rounds. The whole floor was dark except for my little island of desk lamp glow. My neck hurt. My back hurt. I'd forgotten to eat lunch, and the coffee I'd made at 6 p.m. was now cold and vaguely unpleasant in a way that made me gag a little when I took a sip without thinking about it. The Henderson campaign still looked wrong to me, but I couldn't tell if it was actually wrong or if I'd just been staring at it for so long that everything looked wrong. I'd redesigned the color scheme 3 times. I'd rewritten the copy 4 times. I'd reworked the layout so many times that I could no longer remember what the original concept had even been. My phone had been buzzing periodically. I'd ignored most of it, but when I finally glanced at the screen, I saw 4 missed calls from my mom. 4. That was unusual. My mom wasn't the type to call multiple times in succession. She was more of a leave a voicemail and then text, "Did you get my message?" person. I checked the time on the calls. The first one was at 9:15 p.m. The last one was at 11:23 p.m. A knot formed in my stomach. Had something happened? Was she okay? I called her back immediately, my tired brain immediately jumping to worst-case scenarios. She picked up on the first ring. "Hi, honey." Her voice was bright, almost aggressively bright. "I'm so glad you called back." "Hi, Mom. Is everything okay? You called a bunch of times." "Everything is fine. I'm actually calling because I'm in your area. I had dinner with your Aunt Patricia, remember I mentioned that? And I'm staying overnight at the Marriott on 5th, and I thought maybe I could drop by your office tomorrow morning before you start work. Bring you some coffee and pastries. I know you skip breakfast sometimes." "Mom, no." The panic in my voice probably came through too strongly. "No, actually. That's not a good idea." There was a pause. "It's not a good idea." Her tone had shifted. The brightness had dimmed a little. "Why wouldn't it be a good idea to bring my son coffee?" "Because my boss specifically said," I stopped, running my hand through my hair. How was I supposed to explain this? "He said that family members can't come to the office. It's a policy thing. Professional policy." "Oh." Another pause. This one felt longer. "Well, that's very strict, but I understand workplace policies. I won't come by." "Thank you," I said, feeling relieved and guilty simultaneously. "I appreciate that. But I'll see you soon though, right? Maybe this weekend. You could come to the house. I could make that pasta you like." "Yeah, maybe. I'm pretty swamped at work right now, so I'm not sure about my schedule, but..." "You're always swamped at work," she said, and there was something in her voice now that I couldn't quite parse. Not anger, exactly. Something more like concern mixed with frustration. "Sweetheart, are they treating you well there? Your last few visits, you seemed really stressed." "I'm fine, Mom. Really. It's just a lot of learning curve stuff. First job and all that." She said, in that tone that meant she wasn't convinced but also didn't want to push it. "Well, get some sleep. You sound exhausted." "I will. Love you." "Love you too, honey." I hung up and immediately felt guilty for being short with her. She was just trying to be nice. But the image of her walking into Pearson Marketing, bright and enthusiastic in one of her nice cardigans, only to be confronted with Marcus Hartley's disdain for helicopter parents, was absolutely mortifying. I'd rather work 50 straight hours than deal with that interaction. I turned back to the Henderson campaign. It was almost midnight. I had approximately 16 hours before Hartley would want to see this. The first version had taken me 8 hours and had been deemed garbage. This version had taken me nearly 4 hours already and looked only marginally different. I made a decision. I'd go home. I'd sleep for a few hours. I'd come back in early, maybe 5 a.m., and spend the rest of the morning on this. Fresh eyes would help. That's what they always said, anyway. Fresh eyes. I gathered my things, shut down my computer, and headed for the parking garage. The elevator ride down felt surreal, like I was moving through a dream. My apartment was a 20-minute drive, and I spent most of it in a kind of daze, my brain too tired to really process anything except the mechanical steps of driving. I fell asleep almost immediately, still partially dressed, and woke up what felt like 3 seconds later to my phone ringing. It was 6:47 a.m. Bright sunlight was streaming through my bedroom window. I had the disorienting sensation of not knowing what day it was. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but some part of my brain was worried it was work, so I did. "Hello. Is this the person who works at Pearson Marketing?" A woman's voice, professional and clipped. My stomach dropped. "Yes. Who is this?" "This is Rebecca Chen from HR. We're calling because there's been an incident at the office involving your mother, and we need you to come in as soon as possible. Can you be here in 30 minutes? The world seemed to tilt sideways. "What? What incident? What happened?" "Your mother arrived at approximately 6:15 this morning. She spoke with our receptionist and then went directly to find your supervisor, Marcus Hartley. There's been a situation. It's been handled, but we need you here to discuss what occurred." I was already moving, pulling on the jeans I'd halfway removed the night before, searching frantically for a shirt that didn't smell like the panic sweat I'd accumulated over the last 8 hours. "Is my mom okay? Is she hurt?" "Your mother is fine. She's actually still here. But please come in immediately." The line went dead. I drove 20 minutes in 13, running 2 red lights and probably making several traffic violations that I'd worry about later if I wasn't currently living in a state of pure, distilled panic. My mom had shown up at the office. My mom had gone to find Hartley. There had been an incident. This was either the best thing that had ever happened or the worst thing that had ever happened, and I had absolutely no idea which one it was. Chunk 3. I made it to the Pearson Marketing building in record time, my hands shaking so badly I could barely grip the steering wheel. The parking garage seemed to stretch on forever, each level looking exactly like the last, and I took a wrong turn twice before finding a spot on the 3rd level. My legs felt like they didn't belong to me as I walked to the elevator, my mind running through every possible scenario in rapid succession. Had my mom cursed out Hartley? Had she actually gotten physical? The phrase, "it's been handled," could mean literally anything. It could mean they'd separated them. It could mean my mom had been escorted out by security. It could mean... The elevator doors slid open on the ground floor, and I stepped into the lobby. Everything looked normal. The receptionist, Diane, was at her desk. The coffee station in the corner was set up like always. There was nothing visibly different, which somehow made it worse. I took the elevator up to the 4th floor, where Pearson Marketing occupied the entire space. As soon as the doors opened, I could tell something was wrong. There were people standing in clusters, talking in low voices. They stopped when they saw me. Everyone looked up. Everyone was staring. Rebecca Chen appeared almost immediately, as if she'd been waiting by the elevator bank. She was a woman in her 50s with short gray hair and a kind of expression that suggested she'd seen a lot of workplace drama but was trying very hard to remain professional about it. "Thank you for coming in so quickly," she said, and gestured for me to follow her. "Let's talk in my office." "Where's my mom?" I asked, following her down the hallway. My voice sounded strange, too high and tight. "She's in the break room with one of our administrative assistants right now. She's completely fine. Calm. But we need to talk to you first before we all discuss what happened." Rebecca's office was small and very organized. She closed the door behind me, which somehow felt ominous, and gestured for me to sit in a chair across from her desk. She settled into her own chair with a small sigh. "Okay," she said, folding her hands on the desk. "I want to start by saying that what happened this morning was highly unusual, and we're still processing it ourselves. Before I explain, I need to ask you some questions. Have you been having problems with your supervisor, Marcus Hartley?" My throat felt dry. "What do you mean?" "I mean," Rebecca said carefully, "has Marcus been treating you poorly? Assigning you unreasonable amounts of work? Speaking to you inappropriately?" I didn't answer immediately. I was calculating the risks. If I said yes, was I throwing Hartley under the bus? Would he retaliate? But I also had a feeling that honesty was going to be my best option here, especially if my mom had already said something about it. He's been difficult," I said finally. "Very demanding. He's been harsh about my work." Rebecca nodded slowly. "Your mother used a more colorful term. She called him a tyrant who preys on young employees. She also mentioned that you stayed here until nearly midnight yesterday and came back this morning at around 5 a.m., is that correct?" My stomach clenched. "Yes. I had a project that needed to be redone." "How many times did you have to redo it?" He wasn't satisfied with the first version, so "How many times?" Rebecca pressed. "I redid it twice yesterday. And yet you were still working on it this morning?" I shifted in my seat. "Yes." Rebecca was quiet for a moment. She was tapping her pen against her desk in a slow, rhythmic pattern. "Your mother came in at 6:15 a.m., she said finally. She told Diane at the front desk that she was bringing her son some breakfast because she was concerned about your well-being. Diane told her that she couldn't go back to your desk, that it was before office hours. Your mother apparently said, and I quote Diane here, 'I'm not going to my son's desk. I'm going to talk to his supervisor.'" Oh God. This was actually happening. She walked back here. Found Marcus in his office. He comes in early, apparently, and she walked in without knocking. According to Marcus, she immediately started criticizing his management style. She used the phrases emotionally abusive, exploitative, and predatory. She said that you were a recent graduate trying to do your best, and that any competent manager would recognize that and offer mentorship instead of ridicule. I could feel my face burning. "I'm so sorry. I told her not to come here. I specifically told her yesterday not to come to the office." "Let me finish," Rebecca said, and there was something almost gentle in her voice. Marcus apparently tried to defend himself. He said something along the lines of, "This is why people your age are so coddled, because parents like you are always interfering." Your mother responded by asking him when he'd last worked a full day himself, because based on what she'd observed, he seemed to spend most of his time publicly humiliating entry-level employees instead of actually producing work himself. I couldn't breathe properly. This was a nightmare. This was an actual nightmare. She then said, and Marcus confirmed this, that she'd be speaking to HR about his management practices, and that if he continued to treat you or any other young employee the way she'd witnessed, she would be filing a formal complaint. "Oh my God," I whispered. "Here's where it gets interesting," Rebecca continued. "Robert Hammond and Claire Vasquez from upper management happened to arrive early this morning. They were getting coffee in the break room when they heard Marcus raising his voice at your mother. They came out to see what was happening and witnessed the last part of the conversation. They heard Marcus tell your mother that she was destroying her son's credibility by interfering, and that if you wanted any respect in this company, you needed to stop having mommy fight your battles for you. I wanted to die. I genuinely wanted to simply cease existing at this exact moment. That," Rebecca said, "was when your mother said something that I'm going to be very honest with you, neither Marcus nor any of us will forget. She said, 'My son's credibility will be fine. Yours, however, is currently being damaged by the fact that 3 of your colleagues have just watched you berate a woman half your age in your office at 6:30 in the morning because she expressed concern for her child's well-being. That makes you look less like a tough boss and more like someone with serious anger management issues.'" The silence that followed that statement was somehow louder than anything else. "Robert and Claire asked Marcus to step away," Rebecca said. "Your mother has been waiting in the break room ever since. Marcus went home. And I'm now tasked with figuring out what we're going to do about all of this." I stared at Rebecca, unable to form words. "So I'm going to ask you again," she said quietly. "What's been happening with Marcus Hartley?" #Chunk4. The question hung in the air between us, and I realized that this was the moment everything changed. Not the moment my mom showed up, that was the catalyst. This was the moment where I had to decide whether to tell the truth or protect the status quo. Whether to burn bridges or build them. "Everything," I said quietly. "He's been doing everything you're describing." And then it all came pouring out. I told her about the project deadlines that were impossible. About how Hartley would assign work at 4 p.m. that needed to be done by 9 a.m. the next morning. I told her about the meetings where he'd critique my work in front of the entire team, pointing out minor errors and making comments like, "Did you even go to college?" and "I could have a high schooler do this better." I talked about how he never gave positive feedback, just endless corrections and demands for revisions. I mentioned the time he sent an email to my entire department pointing out a typo in a document I'd created, with a message that said, "This is what happens when you hire recent graduates." Rebecca listened without interrupting, her expression growing darker with each confession. I told her about last night specifically. How Hartley had called me into his office at 4:47 p.m., I remembered checking the clock, and told me that the campaign proposal I'd spent 3 days working on was fundamentally flawed and needed to be completely redone. No specifics about what was wrong. Just that it wasn't good enough. When I asked what needed to be changed, he said, if you were competent, you'd already know. So I stayed until midnight. Then I came back in at 5 a.m. because I was terrified of what would happen if I didn't get it done early enough. My hands were shaking when I walked in this morning. I could barely see the screen through my exhaustion. Has anyone else experienced this? Rebecca asked, making notes on a pad of paper. Yes, I said. There are 3 other people on his team right now. I know Sarah, she's been here 6 months, she told me she's been looking for a new job. And Tom, who started a couple months after me, he's mentioned that he hates coming to work. Rebecca set down her pen. I need you to understand something, she said, and her voice had taken on a different tone. More serious, but also more personal. What you're describing is workplace abuse. It's not typical management style. It's not tough love. It's not preparing you for the real world. It's abuse. Hearing it said out loud like that made my chest tight. I'd never framed it that way in my head. I'd internalized it as a personal failing. Like I wasn't smart enough, wasn't hardworking enough, wasn't good enough to meet Hartley's standards. I know this is going to feel complicated, Rebecca continued, because your mother just created a very public incident. And I understand that you're probably embarrassed and worried about how this reflects on you. But I want to be very clear, what she did was not wrong. Was it unconventional? Absolutely. Would I recommend that employees' family members show up unannounced to confront supervisors? No. But Marcus Hartley created the environment where a parent felt compelled to intervene. That's on him. What happens now? I asked. Am I in trouble? No, Rebecca said firmly. Marcus is in trouble. He's very much in trouble. What I need from you right now is a formal statement about the treatment you've experienced. And I'm going to need you to be honest about whether you feel comfortable continuing to work under his supervision. My brain short-circuited. What do you mean? I mean, Rebecca said, that we have options here. We can place you on another team. We can place Marcus on administrative leave while we conduct an investigation. We can do both. But I need to know what you want. This was too much. An hour ago, I thought I was coming in to smooth things over, to apologize for my mom, to maybe get fired. Now Rebecca was asking me what I wanted. I don't know, I admitted. I don't want to seem like I'm using my mom's scene to get special treatment or... Stop, Rebecca said, holding up a hand. You're not using anything. A pattern of abusive behavior was documented by multiple witnesses this morning. Your mother's arrival simply made something that was already happening visible to people who have the authority to address it. You didn't manufacture this situation. You were already suffering in it. There was a knock on the office door, and an administrative assistant stuck her head in. Rebecca, your 9 a.m. is here. Rebecca glanced at the clock. Tell them I'll be 15 minutes. Actually, tell them 20. She turned back to me. Here's what's going to happen. I'm going to talk to Robert and Claire about the specifics of what we witnessed and what you've just told me. Marcus will be placed on administrative leave effective immediately pending an investigation. You have the option of transferring to another team. I'd recommend the Digital Strategy Division. They have an opening and the manager there is excellent, or you can stay on Hartley's team with a different supervisor overseeing your work directly. I can also recommend that you speak with someone in employee assistance. They offer counseling services. I felt like I was floating outside my body. Okay. Before you go, Rebecca added, I want to say something off the record. Your mother made some significant assumptions walking in here. She could have been wrong. She could have misread the situation. But she wasn't. She saw something real and she intervened, even though it probably embarrassed her to have to do that, and even though she probably knew it might embarrass you. That takes a certain kind of courage. My eyes were getting hot. I've spent my whole life being frustrated with her for being overprotective. And now? Rebecca asked gently. Now I'm. I trailed off, not sure how to finish the sentence. I'm grateful. I'm angry. I'm both. That's fair, Rebecca said. Those things can coexist. Now, let's go get your mother and get you both home. This can wait until Monday for formal statements. As I followed Rebecca out of her office, back toward the break room where my mom was waiting, I felt something shift inside me. The embarrassment was still there. The shock was still there. But underneath it was something else. Something that felt a lot like pride. #Chunk5. The break room looked exactly like it always did, industrial coffee maker, mismatched mugs, a refrigerator covered in expired notices about potluck signups. Except my mother was sitting at the cheap laminate table like she owned the place, her purse clutched in her lap, her jaw set in that particular way that meant she was preparing for a fight. When she saw me, her face crumpled. Oh honey, she said, standing up immediately. I'm so sorry. I know I shouldn't have, I just couldn't stand there and listen to him talk to you like that and I. Mom, I said, and my voice came out steadier than I expected. Thank you. She stopped mid-sentence, her eyes widening. Rebecca excused herself quietly, giving us privacy, and I suddenly felt the full weight of what had happened crash down on me. My mother had shown up unannounced at my workplace. She had witnessed my boss screaming at me. She had called him out in front of the entire office. And now my boss was on administrative leave, and my entire career trajectory had just been completely upended. You're not angry, my mom asked carefully, sitting back down. I'm processing, I said, taking the seat across from her. Rebecca just told me that Marcus is being investigated. That I have options. That I can transfer teams or stay with a different supervisor. My mother's hands trembled slightly as she set her purse on the table. I came in to surprise you for lunch, she said quietly. I wanted to see your office, meet your colleagues. I'd been planning it for a week. You've been so distant lately, and I thought maybe if I just showed up and, she stopped, took a breath. And then I asked the receptionist where you were, and she said you were with Marcus. So I started walking back to find you, and I heard him before I saw him. I heard him yelling. I didn't respond. I wasn't sure what to say. I stood outside that glass door for probably 30 seconds, she continued, her voice thick with emotion. Listening to him tell you that you were incompetent. Watching your face. And something broke in me. All those years of trying to be the parent who respects your independence, who lets you handle your own problems, who doesn't hover, it all just snapped. Because you looked absolutely terrified, and he had no right to make you feel that way. Mom. But now I'm worried, she said, cutting me off gently. I'm worried that I've made things worse. I'm worried that people here are going to blame you for what I did. I'm worried that this is going to follow you and hurt your career instead of helping it. That was the complication I hadn't considered yet. And now that she'd said it out loud, I couldn't stop thinking about it. Rebecca said it won't, I said, but even as the words came out, I felt uncertain. She said what happened is documented, and that Marcus created the environment. Rebecca is being diplomatic, my mom said. That's her job. But you know how these things work. You know how people talk. There's already going to be gossip. People saw your mother come in here and confront your boss. Some people are probably going to think you orchestrated it. Others are going to think your family is unstable or dramatic. And even if everyone believes you and sympathizes with you, you're still the person whose mom made a scene at work. That's not something people forget. I felt my chest tighten. She was right. I'd been so caught up in the relief of finally having someone validate that what was happening to me wasn't normal that I hadn't thought about the social fallout. I worked with these people. I saw them every day. Even if I transferred teams, I'd still run into them in the hallway. Still see them in the cafeteria. What do you want me to do? I asked. Do you want me to, deny that you were here? Pretend it didn't happen? No, my mom said firmly. No, absolutely not. I want you to own it. But I want you to be smart about it too. I want you to think about your next move very carefully. As if on cue, my phone buzzed. A text from Sarah, the coworker who'd been looking for a new job. Asterisk, OMG, are you okay? That was absolutely wild. Also kind of amazing, LOL. Your mom is a legend. Hardly deserved that. Talk later. Asterisk. Then another text, this one from an unfamiliar number. It took me a second to realize it was from Tom. Asterisk, hey, just wanted to reach out privately. I saw what happened this morning. I think your mom did the right thing. If you end up giving a statement to HR or whoever, I want you to know I'll back you up about how Hartley has treated us. Just say the word. Asterisk. And then, a moment later, another text. This one from someone I barely knew in the accounting department. Asterisk, heard about the thing with your boss. Not sure what happened exactly, but good for you for standing up for yourself. Asterisk. Your phone is blowing up, my mom observed, not unkindly. Yeah, I said slowly, processing. It's not what I expected. What did you expect? I don't know. For people to think I was embarrassing. For them to judge me. Some people might, my mom said. But I think a lot of people are going to be relieved. I think a lot of people are going to see what happened this morning and feel validated in their own experiences. I think some people are going to feel emboldened to speak up about things they've been tolerating. I hadn't thought about that either. I'd been so focused on my own situation that I hadn't considered the ripple effect. Marcus had been treating people badly for apparently long enough that multiple employees had mentioned it to me. He'd been creating a toxic environment, and everyone had just been living in it. Tolerating it. Assuming it was normal. So what do I do? I asked again. Rebecca said I can transfer or stay with a different supervisor. What's the right call? My mom leaned back in her chair, studying my face. That depends, she said carefully, on whether you want to stay at this company at all. Because right now, you have leverage. You have options. If you stay here, even on a different team, you're staying at a place where your boss created an abusive environment and probably won't face serious consequences beyond a few weeks on leave. If you leave, you can find somewhere better. Somewhere where the culture isn't like this. You want me to quit? I want you to think about what's best for you, my mom said. Not what looks good. Not what seems professional. What's actually best for your mental health, your career development, and your future. That's what I'm asking you to consider. My phone buzzed again. Another text, this time from Rebecca. Asterisk, take the rest of the day. We can talk about next steps on Monday. And tell your mom she's welcome to have coffee with me anytime. Asterisk. I looked at my mother across the table, and I realized that this moment, right here, in this break room, was going to define more than just my job. It was going to define how I thought about myself, about my family, about what I was willing to accept in my life. And I had absolutely no idea what I was going to do. Hashtag chunk 6. I left work that day in a daze, my mom following me to my apartment in her rental car. The drive home felt surreal, watching her taillights ahead of me, thinking about everything she'd said in that break room. By the time we got to my place, my phone had accumulated 37 new notifications. Some were supportive. Sarah had texted again with more detail about the office atmosphere post-confrontation. Apparently people were openly discussing Marcus's patterns of behavior, sharing stories I'd never heard before. Tom had sent a longer message explaining that he and at least 2 other junior employees had documentation of unprofessional conduct stretching back months. Even Rachel from marketing had reached out, thanking my mom for finally saying what we've all been thinking. But there were others. A LinkedIn connection request from someone in upper management I'd never met, which felt predatory somehow, like they were trying to scope me out. A vague text from a colleague named Derek, interesting day. Hope you know what you're doing. And a call from my dad that I'd missed, with a voicemail that just said, call me back. Your mother's been radio silent all day. Dad's furious, I said to my mom as we stood in my kitchen. She was making tea, moving around my small apartment like she owned it, which felt both comforting and claustrophobic in equal measure. He'll come around, she said, but I could hear the tension in her voice. Once I explain. Did you tell him you were coming to my work? She didn't answer right away. That was answer enough. Mom. I wanted to surprise you, she said again, setting 2 mugs on the counter with more force than necessary. I didn't plan to confront anyone. I didn't plan for any of this. But I'm not going to apologize for protecting my child. That's not the issue, I said, and I was surprised by how steady my voice sounded. The issue is that you went behind Dad's back. That you probably knew he'd tell you it was a bad idea. That you went ahead and did it anyway. Because sometimes protecting you means making decisions your father wouldn't make, she snapped. Your father is a wonderful man, but he's always been more pragmatic. More willing to let things play out. And look where that philosophy got us, with you suffering every single day at a job that was destroying you. I could have quit, I said quietly. I could have gone to HR myself. I could have handled this. Could you? She turned to face me, and there was something sharp in her expression. Because from where I was standing, you were barely holding it together. You haven't been sleeping. You've lost weight. 2 weeks ago on our phone call, I could hear it in your voice, that defeated tone. You were starting to accept that this was just what work was like. That you were just a problem employee in a normal situation. And that's what happens when you stay in a toxic environment too long. You lose your ability to recognize it as toxic. The words hit harder than I expected. Because she wasn't entirely wrong. Over the past month, I'd started internalizing Marcus's criticisms. I'd started wondering if maybe I really wasn't cut out for this job. If maybe I was too sensitive, too inexperienced, too whatever for the professional world. So what? I asked. You just get to override my autonomy because you think you know what's best for me. That's not, she stopped, closed her eyes. That's not what I'm saying. Then what are you saying? Because from my perspective, what happened today is exactly the kind of helicopter parenting you've been trying to move away from. You just did it on a much larger scale. She opened her eyes and looked at me, and I could see the moment my words landed. Her face crumpled slightly, then hardened as she tried to control it. You're right, she said, and the admission seemed to cost her something. You're absolutely right. And I hate that I did that. I hate that I became the thing I've been trying not to be. But I also can't regret it, because what he was doing to you was wrong, and someone needed to say it out loud, and, she broke off, ran her hand through her hair. This is what I've been afraid of my whole life. That I'd get this wrong. That I'd either be too controlling or not protective enough, and either way I'd damage you. The anger drained out of me, replaced by something more complicated. Sadness, maybe. Understanding. You didn't damage me, I said. But you did complicate things. I know. And now I have to deal with the aftermath. At work. With people talking about me. With making a decision about my entire job based on something I didn't ask for. I know that too. My phone buzzed again. This time it was a notification that made my stomach drop. An email from Hartley's supervisor, the VP of our division. It was marked urgent. I opened it slowly. It said they were conducting a full review of management practices in our department. That they'd like to meet with me and any other employees who wanted to give statements. That the meeting was scheduled for Wednesday morning, with full HR support and legal documentation. That my participation was voluntary but they strongly encourage it. He's going down, my mom said, reading over my shoulder. That's what this means. Or I'm going to be known as the person who brought down a department head, I countered. Depending on how people decide to spin this. Would that be so bad? I thought about it. Thought about Marcus's red face, his sputtering anger, the way the entire office had gone silent. Thought about how he treated people, not just me, but all of us. Thought about Tom's text about documentation. About Rebecca's measured response. About Sarah calling my mom a legend. I don't know, I admitted. I genuinely don't know what the right move is here. My phone buzzed again. This time it was an email notification, a job alert from Indeed. 3 positions had matched my saved search criteria. One of them was for a junior account manager at a marketing firm with a 5-star Glassdoor rating. The starting salary was $15,000 more than I was currently making. I stared at it, then at my mom, then back at my phone. What are you thinking? She asked. I'm thinking, I said slowly, that I need to figure out what I actually want. And I'm thinking that's going to be a lot harder than either of us expected. #chunk7. Wednesday morning came too fast. I'd spent the last 2 days in a state of productive paralysis. I'd updated my resume 3 times, looked at those job postings until I'd memorized them, and had approximately 15 different conversations with my mom that ranged from supportive to accusatory to resigned. We'd settled into an uneasy truce where she was trying very hard not to tell me what to do, and I was trying very hard not to resent her for that effort. My dad had finally called back on Tuesday evening. The conversation was strained. He didn't blame my mom outright, but I could hear the frustration in his voice, not at the confrontation itself, but at the fact that it had happened without discussion. Your mother has always believed that she knows best, he'd said, and I heard what he wasn't saying, and now look what she's done. The HR office was on the 15th floor. I'd never been up there before. I took the elevator alone, watching the numbers climb, my stomach doing something uncomfortable with each floor. The email had said, full HR support and legal documentation, which sounded official and protective and terrifying all at once. Rebecca Chen from HR was waiting for me in a small conference room with beige walls and a long table. She was professional, kind-looking, and had that particular demeanor of someone trained to handle difficult situations without showing preference. There was a voice recorder on the table between us. Thank you for coming, she said. I know this probably feels unusual. I want to walk you through what this process is going to look like, and I want to make it very clear that you're not in any kind of trouble. You're here as a witness to a pattern of behavior that we're investigating. I nodded, but my mouth had gone dry. First, I need to ask you about your experience working under Marcus Hartley, she continued. I've already spoken with 3 other junior employees. They've described incidents of verbal abuse, unrealistic deadline setting, public humiliation, and what one person characterized as targeted harassment of younger staff. I want to hear your account. So I told her. I told her about the meeting where he'd screamed at me in front of everyone. About the email sent at midnight with impossible revisions due by morning. About the way he'd singled me out in meetings to critique my work while praising senior staff for doing exactly the same things. About how I'd started questioning my own competence, my own right to be in the office at all. Rebecca took notes. She didn't interrupt. She didn't make faces or offer sympathy that would have been unprofessional. She just listened and wrote, and when I finished, she asked clarifying questions about dates and specific incidents. And your mother's visit on Monday, she said carefully. That was unexpected. Completely. She showed up to surprise me for lunch. She didn't know about the situation. Well, she knew I was unhappy, but she didn't know the specifics until she saw Marcus actually doing it in real time. Did she tell you in advance that she was coming to intervene? No. She said she didn't plan to confront him. I believe her. Rebecca nodded, writing that down. I need to tell you something, she said, setting down her pen. This investigation would have happened anyway. Marcus's behavior came to our attention through other channels. The incident with your mother accelerated the timeline, but it didn't create the investigation. That's important for you to understand. I felt something loosen slightly in my chest. So he was already. We had concerns, yes. But now we have documentation and willing witnesses. What your mother did was actually, it gave several people permission to come forward who might not have otherwise. The meeting lasted another 45 minutes. Rebecca asked about my interactions with other coworkers, whether I'd witnessed him treating anyone else badly, whether I'd been aware of a pattern. I answered everything honestly. At the end, she said, do you want to continue working in this department? The question caught me off guard. What do you mean? I mean, if Marcus Hartley is removed, and that's a significant if, but based on what we're finding, it's becoming more likely, the department will need restructuring. There might be opportunities for you to stay, with new management. Or there might be opportunities for you to transfer. Or you might decide this isn't where you want to be. I want you to know that all of those options are available to you, and none of them would be held against you. I thought about those job postings. The 5-star Glassdoor rating. The $15,000 raise. I don't know yet, I said. That's fine. Take your time. But I'd encourage you to think about what you want, not what you think you should do. Not what your mother thinks you should do, and not what you think will look best to other people. Walking back to my desk felt surreal. The office looked the same, but it also felt different. People were watching me. Not openly, but I could feel it. Sarah gave me a thumbs up when I passed her desk. Tom looked up from his computer and nodded. And then I saw Derek in the hallway, and he actually stepped aside to let me pass, which somehow felt worse than any kind of confrontation would have. When I got back to my desk, there was a sticky note on my monitor. In handwriting I didn't recognize, good on you for standing up for yourself. Anna from accounting. My phone had 17 new notifications. A text from my mom asking how it went. A Slack message from Sarah asking if I wanted to grab lunch. A notification that I'd been added to a LinkedIn group called Young Professionals Who Left Toxic Workplaces. And an email from Marcus himself. I stared at that one without opening it for a long time. Finally, I did. To my email. From Marcus Hartley. Subject, professional conduct. Asterisk, I'm taking a leave of absence effective immediately pending the outcome of an HR review. I want to say that I don't appreciate the way this situation has been handled, and I believe there are misunderstandings about my management style. However, I recognize that my approach may not be aligned with company culture. I wish you the best moving forward, asterisk. It was the most insincere apology I'd ever read. It was also an admission of guilt wrapped in corporate language. I closed the email and sat back in my chair. My phone buzzed again. This time it was a news alert notification from my email. I almost ignored it, but something made me click. The headline read, Local marketing firm faces investigation into workplace harassment claims. My heart sank. My company. My office. This situation. It was public now. I refreshed the article. It didn't name Marcus directly, yet, but it was coming. Everything was coming. I stood up, grabbed my bag, and walked out of the office without telling anyone where I was going. #Chunk8. I drove to my parents' house without really thinking about it. My hands knew the way, muscle memory from 22 years of coming home. My mom answered the door before I even knocked, like she'd been waiting for me on the other side. Maybe she had been. Hey, sweetheart, she said, and the careful gentleness in her voice almost broke me right there. How did it go? I walked past her into the kitchen, not ready to talk yet. She followed, giving me space but not abandoning me. That felt important somehow. I sat at the kitchen table where I'd done homework and had conversations and grown up, and I told her everything. About Rebecca Chen and the voice recorder. About the other 3 employees who'd already come forward. About the sticky note from Anna in accounting. About Marcus's non-apology email and the news alert and the investigation going public. Oh, honey, my mom said, and she sat down across from me instead of next to me, like she was trying to be less of a helicopter and more of an actual peer. There's more, I said. I looked at the article while I was driving. They're going to name him. Maybe today, maybe tomorrow. And they're going to mention the incident, your confrontation with him. It's going to be part of the story of how this all came out. You're going to be part of the story. My mom was quiet for a long moment. Are you angry about that? She asked. No, I said, and I realized I meant it. I'm not. I'm relieved. Because I've been so afraid of what this would mean, what people would think, whether it would hurt my career before it even started. And I'm still scared of some of those things. But I'm more scared of what happens if nothing changes. If Marcus stays and keeps treating people that way. If I stay and keep pretending it's normal. So what are you going to do? My mom asked. I don't know yet, I admitted. Rebecca said I could stay in the department if things change. She said I could transfer. She said I could leave. I looked up at my mom. She also said I should think about what I want, not what I think I should do. And I realized I've been making decisions based on everybody else's expectations for so long that I don't actually know what I want. My mom smiled, a real smile, not the strained, careful smile she'd been wearing for the past few days. That's actually really healthy insight, she said. That sounds like something a therapist would say, I pointed out. Your father suggested I start seeing one, she admitted. Actually, he more than suggested. He kind of insisted. He said I need to understand why I thought showing up at your workplace and confronting your boss was acceptable, even if the outcome was good. I couldn't help it, I laughed. It came out a little hysterical, but it was real. And? I asked. What did you figure out? I'm still working on it, my mom said. But I think it has something to do with the fact that you're my kid, and watching someone hurt you activated something very primal and very protective. And I didn't stop to think about whether my actions would actually help you, because I was too busy being angry on your behalf. That wasn't fair to you. You have the right to handle your own problems, even when I think I know a better way. We sat in silence for a moment. I'm still proud of you, though, I said. For what you did. Even if your methods were questionable and kind of helicopter-y. The outcome was good. You helped. I'm proud of you too, my mom said. For going to HR. For being honest. For not letting this destroy you. My phone buzzed. It was Sarah, just saw the news. Are you okay? The office is going absolutely crazy, Then another message, this time from an unknown number. I clicked on it, confused. It was a screenshot of the news article with a comment from someone named James Rodriguez, I worked under Marcus Hartley for 18 months. Everything in this article is accurate. It was the most miserable professional experience of my life. I'm glad this is finally being addressed, The comment had been liked 487 times. And then, another message. This time from Rebecca Chen in HR, when you're ready, let's talk about opportunities. All doors are open, The emails kept coming. Messages from friends from college asking if I was okay. A DM from someone I'd never met who said they worked in marketing and wanted to offer advice. A message from my dad just saying, love you. Let's talk tonight, But the one that stopped me was an email from the CEO of the company. The actual CEO. I almost didn't open it. Dear, my name. I've reviewed the HR investigation materials and the statements provided by you and your colleagues. I want to apologize on behalf of this company for allowing a toxic work environment to persist. Regardless of how the public became aware of this situation, what matters is that we are taking immediate action to address it, Marcus Hartley has been placed on administrative leave pending the conclusion of our investigation. His employment status will be determined within the next 10 days. In the meantime, we are implementing new management oversight in your department and have engaged an external consultant to assess our broader workplace culture, I'd like to meet with you personally when you're ready. I believe we failed you as an employer, and I want to make that right. You have tremendous potential, and I'd hate to see you leave this company because of one manager's failings, Regards, Patricia Wu, CEO. I read it 3 times. Then I showed it to my mom. Wow, she said. Yeah, I said. How do you feel, she asked. Honestly. I feel like something that was broken is starting to get fixed. And I feel like maybe I'm allowed to think about what I want now without feeling guilty about it. My mom reached across the table and squeezed my hand. She didn't say anything, just let me sit with that feeling. Later that evening, I updated my resume again, but this time, instead of changing it because I felt like I had to escape, I changed it because I was thinking about what would be most honest about my skills and what I actually wanted to do. I looked at those job postings again. The one with the $15,000 raise was still appealing, but it was less urgent now. The one with the 5-star Glassdoor rating still caught my eye, but now I was thinking about why it had that rating, not just that it did. I sent a message to Sarah, want to grab lunch tomorrow. I have a lot to process, And I texted my mom, thank you. For everything. Even the helicopter parts, The response came back immediately, always. But I'm going to work on the helicopter parts. Fair, Fair, I typed back. And for the first time in months, I felt like I could actually breathe.